Hello, I'm Jiffy, and this is going to be my basic Monogame tutorial. This is going to show how to set up a project, and it's going to explain the basic methods that are built into Monogame, how to create a basic class, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to be showing off how to get Monogame installed in Visual Studio and get it working. I think there's enough videos explaining that, and there's very good documentation on how to do that, so I don't really want to waste unnecessary time doing so. So go ahead and get started now. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new project, and it's going to be a new Monogame Windows project. You can select your location, your name, whatever. Your location doesn't matter at all. This is just where your files are going to be saved to. The solution name also is going to be the name of your solution, obviously, so you can choose whatever you want. Personally, I'm just going to keep it in my repos folder and name this one tutorial. Your name and your solution name normally should be the same thing. It's really up to you though. And you can also have it create a directory for it. So we're going to create it like so. And here you go. So the first thing that you're going to see is over here, our Solution Explorer. There's pretty much one class here that we need to worry about, and that's our Game 1 class. So we're going to open this up just by double clicking it like so. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. So as you can see, we have some already created stuff here. There are some methods here such as initialize, load content, unload content, all that stuff, which is pretty cool. I'll go over those in a second. The first thing we're going to do is look at our content here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go over to wherever you saved your project to. So I'm going to open that up on my other monitor, get to that. Okay, so I got that open. So this is what this is going to look like. And we're just going to go to our content folder here, and we're going to open the content pipeline tool. This is how we're going to import resources into our Monogame project. Yeah, pretty simple. You can input PNGs, sound files, whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate here, and we're going to drag our PNG into here. This is going to be our basic sprite for the purpose of this project. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Sprite really quick to use for this. So I'm going to use this ship.png right here, and we're going to import it. This is what that looks like, by the way. It's just a little ship, no big deal. So we're going to do, now that that's in here, let's go into our content pipeline. So we'll right click content and add an existing item. Then we're going to select our ship and Control S to save. So that has imported our ship properly into Monogame for use. So first thing we're going to want to do is make that sprite, put that sprite into the game. But before we do that, I'm going to need to talk about what these methods mean, because it's very important in order to draw it. So first thing we have is our initialize. This is where all of our initialization stuff is going to go. Don't need to worry about that too much now. This tends to be one of the methods I don't touch too much. It's one of my least used ones personally. So it's not super important, and for the purpose of this tutorial, that's all you really need to know. So yeah, up here we have load content. This is where we are going to load our content into the game. This is going to be important for using that ship sprite into the game. So this is where you add your content, which you have put into your content pipeline. And then we have unload content. Same thing as load content, except it unloads everything. So not super complicated stuff. Now we have a really important method. This is our update method. The update method is called, I believe, once per frame, and this is how we're going to check stuff such as input and other game logic such as physics, collision, all kinds of stuff like that. This is pretty much something that runs every single frame, and it will allow us to do everything that I just said. And then we have the draw method. This is also super important. This is how things are drawn onto screen. So a good way to think about it is we first load our sprite in, then we're going to draw it, and then we're going to move it around with the update. So you're going to be using your sprite throughout many parts, or throughout many methods. You're going to see it not just existing within one method, but throughout the entire project, if that makes any sense. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw that sprite. So we're going to go up here. This is where all of our variables are going to go. So we're going to go ahead and just create a new texture 2D. We're going to call this our ship, like so. Now we're going to want to load that sprite in. So we're going to go into our load content right here, and we're going to want to go ship equals content dot load, and then in triangle brackets here we're going to type in the name of our sprite, which was ship, just like so. Whoops. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, my bad. So we have to specify what we're loading here. So we're loading a texture 2D, and then we have to pass in our sprite into the brackets here. So ship. There you go. So that has now loaded our ship. Pretty simple. Now we're going to draw it onto the screen. And to do that, we're going to go sprite batch dot begin. I'm going to talk about sprite batch a little bit here. And then down here we're going to want sprite batch dot end. So the sprite batch is how sprites are drawn. For example, the sprite batch starts with begin and ends with end, and in between these two methods is going to be our draw. So that's going to be sprite batch dot draw. Okay, so in our sprite batch dot draw, we're going to have to pass in a few variables. So the first thing we need to pass in is our texture, which is going to be shift. Then we have to pass in a vector2 for position. So we're going to type in new vector2, and then in here we're going to pass the x and y values that the texture is going to be drawn at. I'm going to say 0, 0 for now. Now we're going to put null. This is going to be a destination rectangle, which we're not going to worry about right now. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm not going to go into rectangles. I might do that later. They're pretty important, so they're used for lots of things. And now we need our color. So we're going to do color.white. Color.white will always make the sprite the same color it is in the image. Adding a color to a texture pretty much just adds a tint to it. So if we did color.red, it would add a red tint to everything. Color.white will just have no tint over it at all, pretty much. It's a good way to think about it. So now we're going to need a rotation, which is going to be a float. So we're just going to say 0. Now we need an origin, which is going to be, again, a new vector2, and I'm going to say texture, ship dot width divided by 2, and ship dot height divided by 2. This is going to set the origin of the sprite, which is the center, to the very center of the sprite. So yeah, it's just the exact middle of the sprite. Now we need a scale, which we're going to say 0. Actually, we'll just put 2f just to show what that is. A scale pretty much makes it larger, smaller, and it has to be a float as well, which is just something to think about. Actually, hold on. Missed something here. Sorry, it goes color and then scale. So this is where the scale goes, not there. So this right here is the sprite effect. We're going to do sprites effects dot none. You can flip a sprite horizontally or vertically by doing this, which is good if you have a sprite sheet just for, say, walking to one side in an RPG, and then you can flip it to the other side if you want to do that. Makes things easier. Not a huge use for it though. But yeah, it's already layer depth. We're just going to say 0f. So yes, now we have, hold on, I've made a mistake. Never mind, this is actually the scale. So I'm going to say put df here, make this 0. Sorry, my bad. Should have specified that. This is where, this is rotation, this is the scale. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. So we have our texture, position, rectangle, color, rotation, origin, scale, sprite effect, layer depth. So yes, that's the basics of drawing a sprite. There's other ways to draw a sprite. There's multiple ways to do it, but again, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to draw it like so. So now we're going to start our game, and it's going to open a new window here. Let it start up. Alright, it opened up my other screen. So as you can see, our ship sprite is up here in the top right corner. But so since we set it to 0, 0, that's actually the coordinates of the screen, or our viewport. So 0, 0 is the top leftmost side of the screen. And we can easily fix this by going into our draw here and just changing this position. So I'm going to say 100, 100 for now. So we draw it again. It showed up on the screen. As you can see, our ship has been drawn. Pretty basic. I'm also going to bump the scale down to 2F, just so I can make sure that it looks okay, not too big. Yeah, that's okay. Alright, so now we're going to add some basic input, and to do that we're going to create a new class. So we're going to add new item. Wait, hold on. Right click this. I'm going to go add class. This is going to be our input class, like so. So now we have an input class over here. This is going to be a very small class. This is just going to be a getter and setter just to get our keys when we input it into our player class. So we're going to add some keys up here, like so. You could add more keys if you would like as well, but for now, I'm just going to add the basic movement keys. There we go. Okay, so you have to make sure that you have your namespaces all correct. So we're going to use our input. So there we go. That's literally just our input class. That's all we need. Now we're going to add ourselves another class, again, by going add class. This right here is going to be our player class. This is how we're going to make a player and make it move around. So first thing to start off is we're going to need a little bit of variables here. The first thing we're going to need is a public, actually it doesn't really need to be public, texture 2D, we're just going to call texture. So that's what I'm just going to start off with. Just very basic. Now we're going to need to create a public player, and here is where we're going to take in all of the required variables that we need to create a player. So we're going to need a texture 2D that we're going to assign to this eventually, just called texture again. And we can pretty much get all the other variables we need from this texture. So create that, add our namespace. I just hit Alt Enter and then Enter again, and that will automatically add our required namespace. Now we're going to go this.texture is equal to texture. Now what this is doing is it's setting this variable that is confined in this class equal to the variable that we have up here into our function, or from our function. So it creates it like so. It's returning this variable up here. So pretty simple. We will be adding more eventually. Maybe in another tutorial I'll cover animations and stuff for Sprite class, something like that. So now we need a update loop. This is how we're going to move our player. So we're going to do a public void update. And we need to pass in our game time, because as you can see in our game1 class that our update loop requires game time to update. So we will just pass it in like this. Pretty simple. Create it like so, and now we're going to take in some input. So the first thing we're going to need is some keyboard stuff up here. So I'm going to create some comments just to separate our variables a little bit. Oops. Like so. So now we're going to need a public input that we're just going to call input. We also need a public keyboard state. We're going to call this one current key, and another public keyboard state that we're going to call last key. Also have to add our input class in, like so. Now in our update method, we're going to go last key is going to be equal to current key, like so. And current key is going to equal our keyboard dot get state, just like so. Pretty simple way of doing that. Spelled this wrong. Okay, so now we need to have basic movement. So what we need to think about with movement is we need to check what key is being pressed, which we can get from our input class, and then move it accordingly based on its x and y. So first thing we're going to do is basic movement, then we'll add diagonal movement, which one thing that you may notice with games that use diagonal movement is if it's not made properly, I guess, holding down both keys will actually make the player move faster because you're changing the variable twice as much, I guess is a good way to put it. You're moving twice as fast as you should be because you're moving in both directions at an increased speed. So we will be fixing that. So yes, so the first thing we're going to do is if current key dot is key down is equal to our input dot up, then we want to take our texture dot x plus plus. That will move our x up. Now that is one way to do that. That will move the x one at a movement of one value per frame. But a better way to do that is to have a speed variable, so we can have a float called speed, and then we can have this defined right here. Like so. So I get a float speed, just make sure that's fixed. And then we just add our speed. Okay, so one thing you may notice is that if we try to add our texture and we try to move it, you will notice that there is no position variable for our texture because there's no position for the variable. So we're going to have to create a sprite class. This is a very nice class to have, I'll tell you that now. And this is how we will be able to move our sprites around. To create our basic sprite class, like so, we're going to need, again, some very basic variables. First thing we're going to need is a public vector2 known as our position. We're also going to need, we have some, let's add a float for x and a float for y as well, just so we can assign it for future if we ever need to use it. Now we're going to also need a public texture 2D called our texture, a private color called color, a private, we don't really need to add a scale actually, that's not really too important, and that's pretty much it. Sorry, losing my voice a little bit here. Now we need to, of course, create a function for it, create our public sprite like so, and now we're going to need a texture 2D for the texture, a float, actually a vector2 for the position, and that's pretty much it. Well, I guess we could also add our color, like so. And then, like we did earlier, add our position. And now, something that you're going to notice is we draw our sprites in here, like so, with our sprite bash against our draw. We're going to instead put our draw class inside of our sprite class, like so. We're going to have public draw, public void draw. Then we're going to need our sprite batch, like so. and then in here we can put in our required information, I guess. So we'll do sprite batch dot draw, and then inside of here we're going to put in what we pretty much have right here, but instead we'll pass in the individual sprites values. So I'm just going to copy and paste it into Sprite. So we have this, but you may notice something a little bit different is because our variable is not the same. So we can just replace the necessary things here. And yeah, that's, oh yeah, we need to add the color as well. That's our basic Sprite class. Now we need to create a Sprite. We're gonna call this one ship Sprites, like so. And now, over in our load content, ship Sprites is going to equal new Sprites, and then we need to pass in all of that. So we need to pass in our ship texture, a position, which I'll just set to 0, 0, or actually 100, like we did earlier. And then we need our color, which will be, again, color.white. And that's our basic sprite loaded into the game. However, we need to also draw the sprite. So we're going to go over here and we're going to go ship sprites dot draw, and then pass in our sprite badge. Like so. And that will now draw the sprite based on this that we have right here. So pretty simple. And now over here, we need to fix this a little bit because now we're using sprites instead of textures. Pretty cool now. Can pass in the sprites, and then we can pass in right here sprite.texture just to still keep it handy just in case. This dot sprites is going to equal sprites. Okay, and now we can just change our sprites dot position dot x, or sorry, dot y is going to plus equal speed, and there we go. That should be able to move it up and down. Then we're going to have else if pretty much this. We can copy this, paste it, check the input is instead down, then do the same thing. Sprite dot position dot y, instead we're going to do minus equal speed, obviously. Then else if, we don't really need to do else if, this is kind of up to you. There's multiple ways you can do this. However, I'm going to do else ifs for all of these because we're going to have it taken if it is moving both at the same time. Actually, okay, scratch that. I'm instead just going to keep up and down separate, or up and down and left and right separated, just for simplicity's sakes. Actually, okay, let's paste this again. Right. We'll do our same thing again, but instead we'll be moving on the x-axis. X equals. Then, yet again, literally this again, but instead of minus sign. Like so. So now, we have one last thing we have to do here. That is that we have to create a new player. So we're now going to create a player, call it player 1, like so. And then, right here, we'll go player 1 equals new player, pass in our ship sprite, pass in a speed of say 2. Okay, like so. Now we have this. However, we now have to call that update method that we had there. So we're going to go player 1 dot update game time. Alright, and now if we start this up, still starting up. It's taking a little bit for some reason. Object reference is not such things as an object. Oh, okay. I forgot something. Well, we have to actually put in our input class. It's not just gonna magically work. That's my own fault. So after we do that, we're going to actually add some brackets right here, and now we're gonna put input equals new input. That's my bad. Totally forgot about that. Now we need to assign all of our keys, so I'm just going to assign it to Boston movement. We'll also have to put commas, oops, keep in mind. Because we're actually, a better way to do this, this is one way you can do it. You can have it go down like that. Personally, I prefer doing it like this. And then setting up to equal keys.w, down to equal keys.s, left to equal keys.a, and right to equal keys.b. Then add, like so. So that creates our new input. Oh, whoops. Oh, wait. This should be like this. Okay. Great. So that creates our input like so. And now if we put it, now it should be assigned and everything should work properly. Yep. Okay. So now if we press W, as you can see, there's a little bit something wrong, and that's that our controls are inversed except for our A and D keys. And the reason for that is because the 0 and 0 work a little bit differently than you may think they do. For some reason, the Y values are a little bit different here. So for instance, down is going to instead be plus, and up is going to be minus, which is a little bit weird, but it makes sense when you think about that. X's origin is in the top left instead of the bottom left, like you may think. So, I'll go in here, up, down, left, right. Everything is moving properly. And as you can see, moving down, moving up, moving diagonally, you see there's a pretty big speed increase here. This is pretty easy to fix, thankfully. And we just have to do that by checking if both up and right, and up and left, and down and left, and down and right are being pressed. Which we can do in a kind of lengthy if-else statement. So, not really if-else, it's pretty much just if. So we need to do, we can pretty much copy a lot of this, and we're going to put in our little OR symbols here, or sorry, AND symbols here, like so. If input a key is up and right, then we're going to set our speed is going to, we're going to need a little bit of a difference here. We're going to need a float called diagonal speed. This is the best way to do it in my opinion, because you can easily switch between the two. I can spell, holy crap. Diagonal speed, something like that. It's an easy variable. And we're just going to assign this to 1F, I believe should work. Speed. Actually, let's do one more thing, is we're going to add a float called current speed. This is just to switch between these two speeds easily. And now we're going to need all of these to be changed to current speed. I should have done this earlier, that's my bad. Like so. Then we'll just do our current speed equals diag speed. Also. And then, whoops. Oh, current speed. There we go. Else if now instead of up and right, we can do up and left. Then we can copy this here. And put this one. This kind of came out a little bit. Then we do another if statement. Instead, we're going to be using down. So I'm just going to copy these two right here, paste it here, and change these to down. And then in here, we're going to set our current speed to equal speed. and we're gonna need to put these in all of them. You can also put it in an else statement, but that personally I haven't done it that way, so I can't guarantee that that will work properly. I would assume it would, but I haven't really tested it for some reason, and I really don't want to just do it and then be wrong about it. So that's pretty basic, and now if we start our game up again, we'll see that our speed is not different. Oh, you know what might be the problem? Is it using current speed? Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm dumb. Forget anything I said about adding speed. We actually do have to put else statements. That's my fault. Now here, we're just going to add else statement. Should fix it, although I think I might be wrong about this. No, okay. Up and down is not going to work. That is because of this else statement down here, and we can actually fix that by turning this into, or this statement, like so. And then that only requires to have one else statement now. That should fix it. Sorry, this part was a little bit convoluted. I would plan on doing this a different way, but yeah, this way it works. You can adjust that diagonal speed as much as you want, really. But that is the best way to do it. So that's going to be it for this basic tutorial. If you did enjoy, please leave me a thumbs up down below. Appreciate it. I sound really retarded saying this. Yeah, if you want me to do more Monogame tutorials, please let me know, and I will. So yeah, thank you. Goodbye.